The feds chose Idaho as its first foray into abortion access lawsuits, suing the gem state over its triggered near-total abortion ban. Well, Idaho is again the canary in the coal mine with regard to abortion access. For the first time, the Federal Trade Commission is taking a tech company to court for selling data that could track people to sensitive locations. You know, places like a domestic violence shelter or an abortion clinic in another state. Places someone may not want or may not know they are being tracked. The FTC lawsuit also alleges a Sandpoint-based business took geolocation data and sold it, information which could potentially be used against that person. It's data being kept on all of us. You should know this. And it's being sold around the world by brokers. Kochava, the Idaho company being sued by the FTC, says this is a premature lawsuit based on a misunderstanding. They do take data privacy seriously. It's the very first thing that you see on their website. Here's Chief Political Reporter Joe Paris to explain.
An Idaho-based data company is the target of a new federal lawsuit filed this week by the Federal Trade Commission. The company, Kochava, based out of Sandpoint, Idaho, is accused of selling location data from millions of devices. That data, the suit says, could be used to track people going to sensitive locations, like abortion providers, domestic violence shelters, and religious centers. The suit alleges that Kochava acquired and sold data that tracks people, thus allowing others to identify those people and their daily habits, like where they're going to and from. The suit says that this exposes people to threats of stigma, stalking, discrimination, job loss, and even physical violence. And the lawsuit is looking to stop Kochava's sale of that sensitive data and require the company to delete some information. According to the complaint, the FTC alleges that Kochava's sale of geolocation data puts consumers at significant risk. That data collection isn't unique, though. Just ask Dr. Mark Schmalz, an assistant professor at Boise State in the Department of Information, Technology, and Supply Chain Management.
It seems like it only started a short time ago, but in a very short period of time, this ability to aggregate data on people based on online interactions it's all exploded. It's big business.
This isn't new or unique. Mobile apps, social media, games, and websites all have the ability to collect advanced data. And we're not just talking about email addresses and login info here. Many times, too, users approve data collection without even realizing it.
They can track pretty much anything, any place you go, and the paths you take to get there while you're using the app. And sometimes if the permissions are set up as such, even if the app is running in the background.
Some apps or games appear to just be that, apps and games. But Schmalz makes a major point, especially about free app downloads.
As with most things, if you don't see the cost to you, you're probably the product. And so if you have a free app and it's allowing you a whole bunch of functionality, you have to wonder how they're making their money back. And in a lot of cases, what they're doing is they're collecting data on you and they're selling it to brokers.
Data brokers are catching the attention of the FTC.
And these brokers take data from a whole bunch of different places and they figure out how to match it together. They have very advanced ways of doing that. It's really hard to anonymize data. Almost anything that's collected on you will eventually be traced back to you, if they want to.
That data is out there and accessible to people willing to pay.
If you know what you're looking for, there's somebody that's going to sell it to you.
In response to the lawsuit filed by the FTC, Kochava tells KTVB, quote, that the FTC has a fundamental misunderstanding of Kochava's data marketplace business and other data businesses. They continue. Kochava operates consistently and proactively in compliance with all rules and laws, including those specific to privacy. Kochava also explains in a statement that, quote, prior to the legal proceedings, Kochava took the proactive step of announcing a new capability to block geodata from sensitive locations via Privacy Block, effectively removing that data from the data marketplace, and is currently in the implementation process of adding that functionality. They add, quote, Kochava sources 100% of the geodata in our data marketplace from third-party data brokers, all of whom represent that the data comes from consenting consumers. The lawsuit between Kochava and the FTC will play out, but the reality of data collection continues, something most people might not understand the extent of. But those that do understand the extent of the data collection these days have a decision to make in terms of balancing privacy and using those popular apps and sites.
It's difficult. It really is difficult because there's so much of what we expect to do in our daily lives that seems to require the use of these devices, and that we're sort of being trained to sacrifice some of that personal information about ourselves, private information, for the sake of using these devices.
So it's tricky territory. We're also dependent on the phones and the apps these days, but as you heard, they come with the price. So we'll keep an eye on this suit. This comes, though, as the FTC is getting more serious about data collection and privacy. They're talking about expanding protections and ways they could change the law. But Brian, really the way this comes into Idaho politics in the state of Idaho is this is part of the conversation right now about could people from Idaho be tracked if they go to Washington or Oregon to get an abortion? And there are concerns from some in the community that this data being so available out there, someone could easily show, yes, person A did drive across the border, go to Bend, Oregon, and get whatever done. That doesn't mean that they committed a crime necessarily. However, there are ramifications. There are groups out there that would like to intimidate someone based on what behaviors they have. And we're not just talking about abortion here. This could be someone looking to target someone for their religious beliefs or political beliefs. I mean, you could even have something silly as, you upset your neighbor and they're going to look in to see what you're doing. There's a lot of data out there, and if you know how to access it, it can be dangerous. That's why companies are being charged by the FTC to really take care of the data. But again, as we heard from Kochava, they say they're very serious about it and that they are working on these problems that the FTC has identified.
Well, even when you log on to their website, it says, we value your privacy. It's a disclaimer right at the top. You either agree or you go to more options, and you don't agree. So you don't have to allow access to your information, at least on some of these apps. You can decline. You may not get the access you think, but you can always opt out.
And a lot of these services and these apps, as Brian highlighted, it'll come up, it'll ask you to accept something, and there'll be a lot of tiny print. I know that for me personally, sometimes you just go, yep, whatever, I want to use your website. Well, there are consequences. So even if you're using a free app, if you care, take a look at what they're collecting. Some people, they just don't care.
All right, read the fine print. Thank you very much, Joe.